Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, Season 2, Episode 2. So yeah, we're here with another episode this week, and we're starting with the new recording schedule. Also, I'm gonna just tilt that a little bit. So yeah, as you know, She-Ra is now on Fridays, because our recording schedule has been swapped around quite a bit just due to cutting down on things because, once again, I tried to do too much. That tends to happen. But yeah, so we're getting to another episode this week. Last time we began season 2 off with robots, and specifically Entrapta helping the Horde create these new, better, stronger robots. Bo had the plan to capture one without destroying it so they could study it, which was a phenomenal plan, by the way. But we also had Frosta kind of trying to get into things. We learned something that we kind of already could have guessed at, that Frosta really never had friends before. Having to take over the rule of the throne at such a young age, she was kind of thrust into a situation that she wasn't ready for. And because of it, she had to grow up fast. So now that she actually has friends, she doesn't really know how to act around them. She wants to form these bonds so desperately that she's becoming too clingy. And through her talk with Glimmer near the end of the last episode, I think she's going to start working on that. She's going to start working to better herself and make herself more of part of the team rather than a fangirl, basically. um, we did see a little bit of the villains, Catra, Scorpia, Entrapta, and Hordak, as well as a little bit of Shadow Weaver. Shadow Weaver, I definitely think is going to have some kind of role to play from her prison cell. I don't know exactly what, but definitely she's going to do something in this season. Hordak is kind of taking control as the main villain, though. We've seen him in person now, and hopefully we're going to see a lot more of him throughout this season now that Catra and her team are reporting directly to him. And we also have our heroes having found out that Entrapta is alive and that they left her behind. Now, this was something, I talked about it last time, but I'm going to talk about it again here. This was something with Season 1 that I did have an issue with. As I have said, I think that the fact that they kind of just resigned her to being dead so easily and quickly felt off. Yes, they weren't as close to her as with others. That's just true, because let's be honest, she's a little weird. Um, but they were just way too quick to assume that she had died, with no real evidence to point out that she did. And now they're going to feel guilty about it. And I really hope that they do, like really guilty. Because all things considered, they fucked up. And they need to face the repercussions of that. I don't think I don't think they're going to be able to rescue Entrapta and bring her to their side or anything like that at this point. I think that they've kind of closed that bridge for the time being. I do think Entrapta will come to their side eventually, just like I do with Catra. But I don't think it's going to be for a while still. If it happens this season, it won't be till the end of the season. But yeah, so we have Bo studying all of this, and he discovers that it's made through First One's tech and stuff. The robots, the new robots to be specific. And meanwhile, Catra and them are going to try and find more in order to, improve and stuff. Meanwhile, Adora herself, She-Ra, has been training with, I don't remember its name, the AI program in the First One's temple, and trying to get better. The program itself is trying to be more human, for lack of a better word, and it's ridiculously silly in a good way. But Adora's learning these different powers with her sword, such as being able to transform it. And she's getting better, but she's still having some troubles, especially on an emotional end, when it comes to Catra. And we're still seeing that she is able to still be manipulated, even though it's a hologram and just like, not real. Even so, it's portrayed very realistically, so that it still shows that the real Catra could still get to her. And I like that as well, because Adora and Catra were basically lifelong friends. So even though Adora is very sure that she's on the right side now, and very confident in what she's doing, it's still going to be hard to deal with someone who you grew up with, who you trusted and who trusted you. Especially since Catra will know exactly what buttons to push and what exact ways are needed to manipulate her. And which is why Catra has been doing so well in comparison to someone like Shadow Weaver. She's been doing as well as she has and has gotten these promotions and all from Hordak because she knows Adora. Let's be honest, I'm not saying that Catra is a bad strategist in general, but the honest truth, she knows Adora. And she knows how to get to her. Because of that, it helps their cause in general, because let's be honest, She-Ra is their biggest threat right now. So, yeah, that's really the big reason that Catra is doing as well as she is. Again, I'm not saying she's a bad strategist in general. She could do pretty well, I'm sure, otherwise. But that is the big thing that I think is keeping her on top right now. And granted, her team is pretty good too. Like Entrapta with her technological genius. Scorpia has a lot of power to her, so there is that as well. Yeah, it's just she has a good team working with her as well, so you have to take that into account. So yeah, I don't know exactly what's going to happen in this episode. I assume it's going to just pick up from where the first episode was. Probably have something to do with them trying to rescue Entrapta, even though that's not going to work. Because they probably think Entrapta is being held prisoner or something, you know? They probably, even though they know now that Entrapta would have figured out would have been making these robots and stuff, they probably think that she's being forced to or something, rather than doing it of her own free will and having joined them. So, yeah. One thing I mentioned last time as well, and I really hope that this season starts to explain that, is why the Horde is so against princesses. Why does the Horde see princesses as evil beings, and that they're actually the good guys in a way? Because we've seen multiple times now, that is how they see princesses. They see princesses as these evil, horrible creatures, basically. And now, I don't know if this is, like, Hordak kind of brainwashing everyone, if he knows, like, oh, they're not actually like that, but I don't know if it's Hordak's fault or if even he believes that. I don't know. But that is something I really hope this season does start to flesh out, like the Horde's motives. Because right now, all we can say is that they're not your simple, just evil villains. They actually have some level of depth to them. And I'm really excited to see exactly what more they can do with that. Because I love villains who have that depth to them. And there's a good spot for villains who are just evil for the sake of evil. There are great villains like that. They're just horrible people who don't need a lot of backstory and development and depth, who are just great as is. And that's fine, but sometimes I like to see villains who have this depth, and especially in shows like this. So we are going to get this started. We are still doing, like I said, one episode a week for now, just because it is short. It is a short season. And we'll just kind of go from there and take it as we go. So yeah. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black, then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. Okay, and we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, so another great episode of She-Ra. This one kind of split into two separate stories going on, an A plot and a B plot. But at the same time, usually with stories like that, the A plot is seen as the more important one, the one that's a bigger deal and focuses on the main characters. And the B plot is kind of like a side story that's going on at the same time. But I can't really say that either of these plots felt like a side story. They both felt vastly important, but for different reasons. And by the way, I'm not liking my hair like tucked behind my ears like that. I only did that earlier because because I went outside to get a drink from Speedway. And I didn't want the wind blowing my hair all over the place. So, but yeah, I wouldn't consider either of these plot points to be less important. In fact, I'd consider them more like both of them A plots. But let's talk about each one. So, first off, we have Glimmer and Bow. Glimmer and Bow are talking to each other about having found out about Entrapta being alive and all. And naturally, they feel extremely guilty about it. And they should, as I said multiple times throughout this reaction stuff, they should feel guilty about it. They were wrong to just leave her behind, to not even try to save her, to just assume she was dead. And I'm glad that they're realizing that now. And I'm glad they're realizing their mistake. And I'm glad that they're seeing the repercussions of their mistake as well, with Entrapta having joined the Horde. But either way, this part of the plot, this part of the episode, focused on Bow and Glimmer initially trying to rescue Entrapta. They end up taking Catra hostage and trying to get her back to Bright Moon, which doesn't really go well, because Catra is a beautiful troll. Catra eventually hits the tracker on her badge, though, allowing Scorpia to locate her. And so Scorpia and the others come to try and rescue her, and a standoff happens, where it's eventually revealed that, yeah, Entrapta's with the Horde now, and Glimmer does not handle it well. But eventually she and Bow manage to escape from the Horde soldiers, Catra, Scorpia, and the others, and get out of there. And I do feel bad for them, and I understand why Glimmer was so, like, legitimately upset and angry about it at the end there. She has every right to be. But it is also, once again, repercussions for their actions. And I like that. In fact, this actually helps that issue I had with Season 1 with this entire plot point. Because as I said in the pre-thoughts and all, this was an issue for me with Season 1. This was a problem that Season 1 had. Them just completely resigning her to her death and assuming that they couldn't do anything and just leaving. And the fact that they are having these repercussions now, the fact that they are facing the consequences of that action, makes it feel more natural. Before, it felt like it felt really off-putting, like it was against their character to just give up on her, basically. But the fact is, it was a mistake they made, and we're seeing that they have to face the consequences of that mistake. So it's very good to see that. The other part of the plot, though, in this episode was Adora. So Adora is working with Swiftwind to try and figure things out in order to put this watchtower back together, because it will help her be able to continue on with her training better, as Light Hope is glitching out. So we see them go on their journey, and they find the remains of the tower, but are having trouble getting things to work. And I like how both of them are shown as being in the wrong, because a lot of times with a series or an episode like this in a series, it would try to paint the Swiftwind character, basically the character who would be in Swiftwind's spot here, as having had some kind of special knowledge about how it goes on, how it's going to be fixed. And it's like, oh, the loop-de-loop was the secret all along. No, that's usually so forced and stupid. And then sometimes it works, sometimes it does, but most of the time it's forced and stupid. So I'm glad here that they showed that Swiftwind was also in the wrong. Swiftwind wasn't taking it seriously enough, and he acknowledged that, and he worked with Adora to make it better. And we find out that the reason he wasn't taking it seriously enough is because he's just overly excited. He's getting the chance to do something big, to be something big, to be able to help She-Ra save the world, basically. And he's excited, and he has every right to be. But he acknowledged that he was letting that excitement get to him and wasn't taking things seriously enough. Adora, meanwhile, was trying to do things on her own. She felt like she had to be the best She-Ra she could be in order to fix the mistakes of the former She-Ra, Mara. And we're seeing that she has this kind of complex to her where she almost wants to take care of things herself, and she has to learn to work well with others. And she's learned that a lot in season 1, but we see that she's still trying to do a lot of this on her own. So when she comes together and realizes this and works with Swiftwind, everything comes together. Again, literally, because that's what she needed to do. She needs to be able to trust in and work with others. And this is a really big deal because this is something a lot of people need to learn in real life too. People in real life are so insistent on this idea of independence. Like, oh, you grow up, you become an adult, you have to go out and be independent on your own. You have to learn to live on your own and everything. And it's like, no, you don't. In fact, you shouldn't. We as humans are a social species. We are not meant to be independent. That is literally the point of our species. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to have some alone time every now and again. No, not at all. But we need to have that friendship and relationships in terms of romantic sense as well. And there are exceptions. There are people who are aromantic. There are people who are asexual who don't need the same kind of relationships as others. But in some way, we need to have some kind of relationships. We need to come together and be social. It's how we progress as a species, and it's how we just survive. Independence is actually a dangerous thought, because if we take it too far, it'll actually hinder us, not only as a species, but just on a personal level. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with being able to take care of yourself. There's nothing wrong with being able to handle things, and being able to have your alone time and whatnot. There's nothing wrong with that. But we as a species should not live independently. We should not live as an independent person. We need to have, and again, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to have all these romantic relationships or sexual relationships or anything. It can be just normal friendships. It can be just people you hang out with at work, or hanging out playing games and whatnot every now and again. But full independence is actually dangerous for us. And in the end, we need to be able to rely on each other. We need to be able to connect. And I'm glad that this is kind of showing that She-Ra's never going to be at her full power. She's never going to be at her best unless she forms these connections with her noble steed, with her friends, the Princess Alliance. She needs these connections to be able to be the best She-Ra she can be, to be able to avoid the fate that Mara had. Now, I don't know if Mara did have these connections or not. We don't know. We don't know a lot about that backstory yet. I really hope we find out a lot more. But it's possible that maybe she didn't, and maybe that was the reason why everything went to shit. Because she didn't form these connections and she tried to do everything on her own, and it caused her to become corrupted by her powers and everything, to lose control. And it's just building this wonderful like message with the series. A lot of wonderful messages, but especially with this, that again, relationships are necessary for humans, for people in general. We need to have some form of relationships with others. And yeah, I really appreciate that. um, so yeah, at the very end here, they're about to tell Adora what's going on, and presumably afterwards, they're probably going to tell everyone else as well. So I assume that next time we're probably going to get into that, and things are probably going to get a lot more serious regarding that specific aspect of things. I don't know if they're going to try to do another rescue mission. I don't think so. Because again, they know now that Entrapta is on the Horde side. She basically said so. Even though it didn't seem like Entrapta was fully like for the Horde. It just seemed like she was like, all my stuff's here. They're giving me all this support and help and stuff. So, why not? It's basically like a very not really apathetic, that's the wrong word. A very just kind of meh response. It's like, it's not even a wholehearted, like, oh, I'm on the Horde side now. No. And she didn't even seem to hold any issue with Glimmer or Bow either, by the way. She didn't seem angry or upset with them. So that's interesting to know. So I don't think she's holding a grudge against them anymore. And I don't think she's even evil. I don't think she's doing this for the purpose of attacking Bright Moon and all. I think she's just doing this for science, as she said, to try and just learn all the secrets and study all the stuff and everything. That's her only real goal here, I think, to continue being entrapped. And again, she feels that the Horde are the ones who are giving her the ability and the support to be able to do that the best. Which, I mean, to a little bit, I could see how she could view that as feeling like the Princess Alliance Noel didn't do that for her. But yeah, it's just like that's where she is now and all. Again, I don't think she's evil. I don't think she's like fully for the Horde, but you understand. But yeah, this was a really great episode. I really like how they handled things. And I can't wait to see where it goes next, both with Adora's training, her continued understanding of working with others, as well as this entire story with Entrapta, because that seems to be kind of what they're focusing on a little bit right now. I hope they don't just kind of throw it to the side and start to focus on other stuff now, just because there's, only a few episodes this season in comparison to last one. But either way, I'm really excited to see what more they have in store for us. And for now, tell me in the comments below what you thought of this episode of She-Ra and the Princess of Power Season 2. And thank you all so much for tuning in. For now, though, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See you all next time.
And though you've come